Well, we're sitting here on the porch of a house on the Dee Ranch, which is in West Alabama on the west side of the Tombigbee River. Used to be a little town up the road a little bit called Memphis, where they used to raise cotton and put it on boats and send it down to Mobile.
Was a thriving community before the railroad came. When
Yeah,
that was the only form of transportation.
right. Yeah, it's one of the interesting things to me about living here is the changes in transportation that early on. In fact, people moved here in the first place was the river because they knew that was a way they could get stuff to market, and then later on a rail line was built over in Mississippi that pretty much shut the river down, and then back on the other side, and then in '85 they opened up a new river
Right.
thing with locks and dams, but I guess it came too late because by that time uh, the idea was bringing coal out of Appalachia and timber out of Appalachia, but that just didn't ever materialize.
And the river is an efficient way to transport commodities, but
Right.
you know
Slow.
our society has gone to rail, and we've gotten away from rail now to most our things are transported on truck because people don't want to wait and plan far enough ahead for rail or water travel.
Yeah.
So
You have a pretty good size operation here. It's you mentioned earlier that it's owned by 12 siblings, and you and your sister Annie live here and manage the farm, and the other 10 live out across the country.
yes, sir.
Um, what kinds of things do you do on this farm?
We're a diversified farm here. We row crop about 3,500 acres. We grow corn and soybeans primarily on that, on our flat bottom ground that is conducive for farming, kind of a heavy clay prairie ground. And then from here, which is our headquarters, from here south, we have more of a rolling hills, shallower topsoil, and it's not as good for row crop. I mean, you'd have more erosion problems and different things, but we can grow a lot of grass. So from here south, we run cattle. That's the most efficient thing for this part of the country. We can grow a lot of grass. The most efficient way to harvest that and market that is through cattle. So we have commercial. We're a commercial cow-calf operation. We raise our own bulls, raise our own seed stock, and then raise those calves up to about 700, 800 pounds. And then from here, we sell them as load lots that go to a feed lot and finish them out. They process them out west and bring them right on back.
So those
And
Angus burgers we get at Hardee's, they starting right
they
here?
could
Is
have
that-
my
is that-
picture on them. They could. We're not sure.
What do the row crops, the corn and the soybeans? Do you feed those to your cattle, or do you?
We do
market
some.
them?
We have used that to mix our own ration. Lately, with commodity prices, corn and soybeans have been a little better priced, and so we can sell our raw commodities and buy a blended ration which fits the cattle just a little better and is a little more economic. And it all depends on the price of the commodities. If we grind our own feed and make it, or if we'll sell those and buy our own stuff back, or buy feed back for the cattle.
No other livestock that you raise here, hogs or?
We have horses that we use to work cattle with, and we have a very small herd of goats that we use for brush control.
Annie and I talked about that. I helped her. I think I helped her find some goats. She came into the barbershop one day.
That's an experiment on brush control in our pastures. Where in these pastures, one of our grasses is our primary grass is fescue that grows on in the cool weather in the fall. But that fescue is not the best grass for cattle, and so in that fescue we like to plant clover or have some other things in there. To spray to kill the weeds, I might kill my clover. So we're working with the goats to work on the brush, so we don't have to use herbicide to take care of the weeds, and hopefully they'll complement. Goats really complement the cattle because they don't like to eat the clover or the grass. They'd rather eat the bushes and the junk that the cattle won't eat. So the two kind of complement each other.
You You were raised on a farm? Is that where you learned to do those things?
I was not raised on a farm. I was raised in a small town of about 10,000 people,
Yeah.
and I was a city boy.
Yeah.
I went to the University of Alabama and got a degree in geology.
Uh-huh.
Thought I was going to work in the oil field,
Uh-huh.
but I was recruited by my father to work on the farm.
Oh,
He said he
okay.
needed some help for a little while, and I said,
It's
"So
been a while.
Yeah, so at 20 years old, I was learning what every 12-year-old farm kid knew. I had a big learning curve because I wasn't raised around it.
Sure.
But I've learned to love it, and
Well, you didn't have to unlearn some things maybe that way, or
right.
You were,
I didn't
you were
know
open
I didn't
to
know the bad habits because
Yeah,
I was learning new.
Yeah.
But farming is an amazing thing. Farming is not a job as much as it is a way of life, because
Would you say it's a calling?
I think you have to have a calling to be able to be satisfied at it, because when it's time to farm, there's a window that things are right. It's to do harvest or to plant. There's a right window, and when that window is, we've got to go as hard as we can go for 18, 20 hours a day for those weeks. And then when we get rain in the fall or in the winter, there's not much we can do. So you look at each other around the shop, and you work on equipment, and you do those things, and it's running real hard as you can go at times, and then figuring out how to slow down and look back and do the fine details that you need to be doing and keeping up with. And
One of the things that I did years ago was to write soil and water stewardship material for the National Association Conservation District, so it's only natural I'd ask you, what are you doing for water and soil conservation?
Soil conservation, and that means a lot of different things to different people, but I think it was one of those catchphrases: farmers are stewards of the land.
Right.
And it is so true, because the land is our whole livelihood. It's our factory.
Yeah.
That's the potential we have, and so the better we can treat it, the more we can improve the land, the better potential we have to make a better crop. And
you've got children, so you want
I've
to
got children
pass it along
that
to them.
hopefully are going to come back, and nieces and nephews that are going to work here, and generations. But I mean, we can't look at the soil for just this crop,
Yeah.
because we have to sustain or improve all the time to be able to get better.
Well, you mentioned this hillier land on your farm. You've got it in grassland so that it doesn't
That's the
erode.
most efficient use
Yeah.
that we have found for that at this point. And on this other ground, we use a lot of primarily no-till, where we don't have to till the soil and don't leave it exposed, and where we have to do no tillage, where we use a lot of cover crops to help build that soil profile and the organic matter of the soil and the structure of the soil. We've added irrigation on a considerable amount of our farm, because commodity prices have gone up in the last 10 years, but our input costs have gone up exponentially.
Yeah.
So we have so much invested in a crop before it comes out of the ground. We've got to do everything we can to ensure that we make a crop. And irrigation is one of those things that it's not going to make a crop, but it makes a good crop better, or it saves a total disaster in a drought year.
And so you've built a reservoir that
Built a
you
reservoir
use?
to capture wintertime runoff, water that normally would rain in the wintertime, run off, go in this creek, go down the Tennessee Tombigbee, and be in Mobile Bay before I ever plant a crop.
Yeah.
And we try to capture that water in the wintertime, hold it, and then in May and June and July, when we get dry, we can use that water to irrigate with. And when the crop really needs it, when we're not getting those rains.
Are there some issues that in farming today that we could share with ministers in rural areas so that they'd be more sensitive to the situation of the farm families that make up their congregation?
I think so. I think farming is a different creature in the business world. Farming is a high stress business.
Yeah.
There's nowhere in it, because we've got phenomenal input costs. To be able to gather enough land or rent enough land to be productive and have a sustainable operation, you've got a huge investment, or even if it's not even your investment, you've got a huge risk in just renting that ground. And like I say, irrigation is one of those things that helps us make sure we have a crop. And we're using a lot of technology to do things better and smarter. But it all comes back down to we're still relying on Mother Nature.
We'll say God.
We're staying on God right there to help take care of us. I mean, there's a certain percentage of things we can control. But there's a lot of things in farming that we cannot control.
Yeah.
We've got business cycles up and down with commodity prices that we're not working on a local sales anymore. We're on a national market, an international market, global market, right? Because beef prices are set by if we can import into China, that's going to affect our beef prices. Or if we have an outbreak of mad cow, which is BSE, again, overnight, our commodity prices, our cattle prices could go down and just stay down. We've been through that before, and you plan on some things, but one disaster, and you've got to learn how to keep your family fed and make it through and hold on. So you've got to have a lot of faith, and you got to have a lot of drive, because there's easier things.
Yeah.
You know, I can go work in a factory and get a steady paycheck, and that's a lot less stress.
Yeah.
It's not as much reward, and that's one of the things about farming is the reward. I love the self-gratification. I love that I can watch that crop grow.
Yeah.
I get that. It's
you can hear it probably.
You can. It's like raising my children in a year.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same emotion as my children, but it's the same thing. We go from planting all the way to harvest, and we can see the fruits of our labor in one season. And it's when it's good, it's great and it's fun. When it's not, it lasts a long time.
Yeah.